right, so we are recording. So now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can show you, this is a NearPod lesson. I'm going to be giving you a code that you'll be typing in on nearpod.com. So let me share that. All right. So you're going to go to nearpod.com, and on the part where it says students join a lesson, that's where you're going to be typing in the code because you're joining this lesson as a student. As a teacher, I'm going to be showing you on my WebEx screen, the screen I've shared will show you what the teacher view looks like. And because I'm showing you the teacher view, which I normally wouldn't show students during a live lesson in class, if you would like to make up a name because you don't want your real name actually coming up on the screen that's getting recorded, feel free to make up any name that is appropriate. And I feel like I say that because I'm used to teaching elementary kids that like to do silly things. So I trust you. But yes, so if you'll do that, there is a code right here. It's up there, but I'll make it bigger. So you're going to nearpod.com. And then on where it says student code, you're typing in RBIEP and then putting in a name, whichever name that you would like, and joining the session. So that's going to let you join on the student side. And that's why you'll either have to switch between tabs where I'm showing you the teacher side and where you're seeing the student side, or on a second device. A phone or tablet is fine too, because you can certainly use the NearPod app and type the code in there. So that code is going to stay up here. Looks like I've got some participants. Who do we have here? All right. Oh, I got some fun people. Techie Fletchy, I think I know you. All right, so you're joined in on the student side. Now, when you are running any lesson in NearPod, there is a teacher view and a student view during a live lesson, but lessons can also be set as student-paced lessons. So we're going to talk about that because that's going to affect how you would use this possibly as a fully virtual teacher versus a face-to-face teacher, because I think one version is better for live and one version is better for our students that are working on their own. All right, so looks like I have 7 people. Let me check here if I have any questions so far. Nope. Okay, that's a good start. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to start off with a poll question because this is one of the types of questions that you can do in NearPod. And I joined myself as a student on a second screen. So just so you know, if you're seeing Hannah Dyksen, you're like, wait a minute, aren't you running the session as a teacher? Yes, I am, but I also joined as a student and I'm answering on another screen over here, just in case I didn't have a lot of people that wanted to join. So a poll question, you click on your answer and you hit submit. Now, this is what you're going to see on the teacher side. You'll notice that on the student side, all you saw was the question itself. So if I'm displaying this in front of the class, I'm going to be in that student view, and I do that by switching here with the S. So if I click on the S, it's going to change me to the student view, and then I'm only going to see at that point what the students see. Okay, and anytime I want, I can switch back to teacher view. Now, in order to make this easier on myself, as a teacher running a live lesson, I would have the student view of what is shown up on the projector, but then the teacher view is what I'm going to put on like my iPad or my dual monitor screen or something like that. So I basically open it up in 2 ways while I'm doing that. Okay, so I just want to make sure that makes sense. And I'm going to go ahead so you can focus on everything else and just turn off my video there so you can just focus on what's on the screen. Now, if I want to, as a teacher, I can go ahead and share this pie graph or pie chart with my class. So if I click share, that's going to show up on your screen. It's not going to show any individual student results, but it's good for discussion in class. Ooh, we're at a very evenly sliced pie there. Okay, that's interesting. And I have a couple of, all right, got a couple of people in there, including myself. I put myself as previous experience, so that's good. So that's something that you can share with students, and it's a good discussion starter because the poll questions would not necessarily be questions that I would ask that have right or wrong answers. These are more questions that you would want to spark any type of discussion. Okay. All right. So with that in mind, let's talk about the basics of what NearPod is, and then we'll delve into what NearPod can do. So NearPod allows you to create interactive lessons with a variety of content and activities. So they have content, which is information you're giving to students in a variety of ways. And then they have activities, which is what students actually do things on. They're great for both formative and summative assessments because as you're doing a live lesson, you're gathering a lot of feedback during the lesson. Because as students are working and you set up checks along the way with different kinds of activities, you're seeing how they're doing, the kind of answering, any kind of questions that they have, that's coming very clear. And you can always adjust then on the fly during your lesson. Or there are, you can set up quizzes and things like that within NearPod that would be more of a summative assessment. It can be teacher-led or student-paced. So my thought is, as far as working with face-to-face versus virtual kids, I think it's going to be easier as a fully virtual teacher to use NearPod more as student-paced lessons, because you're not guaranteed that students will necessarily have a second device like I asked you to have, or they may not be very good at flipping between tabs, so they can be watching you on one screen and listening and then doing their work on another screen, just depending on their age group. But when our virtual teachers have been working on curriculum for you, they have been adding some student-paced NearPod lessons. So that makes them be able to gather some feedback of student work on a lesson that they're doing on their own. So instead of giving them a word study lesson where they're just clicking through slides and who knows if they're actually reading them or doing anything with them, this way they actually have information that they're gathering from those students along the way to see if the students are understanding the content when they go back and view how the student did on that particular activity. So I see it more as there's a better power with the live lessons when you're face-to-face and the student-paced lessons when you're virtual. Doesn't mean you can't do it a different way and flip-flop. You just have to think about, devices and how well students can navigate and things like that. Student-paced lessons are also good for subs if you're in a face-to-face classroom as well, because you can still make sure that your students are doing some work with the content that you want them to see. All right, let's see here. Let's see if I have any, nope, no questions yet. I'm gonna keep trying to check. All right, so the other nice thing is that NearPod is integrated into Canvas. So like I said, I'm going to show you later. Now, the way you join today by going to nearpod.com, students would not have to join that way because NearPod has already been pushed into Canvas so that you can create an assignment in Canvas using NearPod and students be able to do all the activities and see all the work within Canvas itself and never have to go to another screen. It basically opens up what you're seeing on your screen within the Canvas screens. And then the other nice thing is that if you create it as an assignment, then you can go to SpeedGrader and you can view each student's individual work on a NearPod slideshow, and you can give them a grade in SpeedGrader, which then can connect back to SIS. So you can basically do a 3-in-1 if you use NearPod and Canvas and grading, which is really awesome. Because I will tell you with Google Classroom, and that integration is not that good, because when I did in Google Classroom, I would assign a NearPod lesson, they'd get a link in Classroom, they'd go to NearPod's website to do the activity, and then I would have to go to NearPod to look at the reports of student work, and then I would have to go back to Classroom to actually type in their scores. So this puts it all on one platform, which is great. Now, all elementary teachers, including specialists in SPED and things like that, have a NearPod account now. So basically, NearPod is available K-12 for teachers. The first time you log into NearPod, make sure you do that on NearPod's actual site. So you have to basically authorize your account first using nearpod.com as a teacher, and then you can use NearPod on Canvas after you've done that. So if you have never tried logging in with NearPod before, you can go to nearpod.com/login, and you can just click on login with Google, and that will take you to a NearPod library. Once you have authenticated your account, the next time you go to a Canvas class and click on NearPod, it'll ask you to authorize it the first time. And then your NearPod library will show up within Canvas itself. So you can do all your work within Canvas, but actually using your NearPod library. So let me just show you. So this is my NearPod library. I have, and I will show you, I'll put on my screen. I'll move to the next slide because that has a NearPod lesson library example as well, depending on which screen you're looking at. So you have in your library, these are any lessons that you have saved or created. You can also search your own lessons if you have a lot. The district library has some district shared lessons. I don't know that there's not really much out there for elementary teachers yet because you guys just got the codes this year. Secondary, elementary tech teachers and elementary librarians have had the code, have had NearPod for a few years. They have some lessons out there. You can also search NearPod's library, which is pretty extensive at this point. So any topic that you want to search, if you find a lesson you like, you can add it to your library and you can edit it. So you can add things, take things away, combine lessons together. You have the power to do whatever you want with the NearPod lessons themselves. So, and then you can also create from here too. So you can create a lesson in NearPod itself or create a lesson in Google Slides with the NearPod add-on. And we will talk a lot more details about how that component works in just a minute here. So I will help you with that. And I'll show you some examples of that and the good and bad about doing it in slides as we get going. All right, I think too that covers most of the library things. I'll show you, there's a slide later on about how you create folders. You might notice that I have folders here with lessons inside of them and how you delete lessons that you don't want. There's a lesson or a slide later on about that. All right, any questions yet? That's a good sign. Still have 8 people joined. That's another good sign. All right, so let's talk about content. So this is what NearPod has available for you as far as the type of content that you can add. So these are not things where students are doing work. This is where you are giving them information, letting them explore and learn. Okay, so they have video content, and video content will just take you to a page where you are searching a YouTube. So in video content, you are not going to be able to do anything but a YouTube link, but there's also web content that's anything that's not YouTube. So if it's a video from another site that's not YouTube, that's when it would be a web content. So it would just ask you for whatever kind of link, but the web or the video content is YouTube. You can also design slides. I will tell you that NearPod's slides creator is not nearly as fancy as Google Slides. There's not as many layouts and different things like that, but it does get the job done if you have, just some basic information you want to throw on there. With the slide, you can put on text and video and images combined. So it does have some things that you can put together, but it's just not as fancy as designing it in Google Slides. There are 3D renderings. So if you want to explore their NearPod 3D library, then you can see what they have. So there's some things like human body and stuff like that where students can drag around and look at objects in 3D. It's kind of like a VR, but it's just for objects. Vocabulary is an add-on to NearPod. So Vocabulary is its own website as well that people can pay to use, but there's also Vocabulary within NearPod. If you use the Vocabulary here and you put a Vocabulary video into your NearPod lessons, you get 3 free per teacher per year, which is not a lot, so use it sparingly. Now, some people have found some free vocabulary videos out on like YouTube or on vocabulary sites. They usually have some free ones. So if you wanted to integrate one of those, you would just do that as a web content and not use up one of your 3 free videos there. There is on the simulation, there is some math and science ones. So there are some things like, I think there was one on like area model and stuff like that for math. It gets into some really higher level math and science as well, but it's a good tool to explore to see if there are any interactive math tools that you could use in a math lesson. They also have the NearPod field trips, which are pre-made VR landscapes. Now, NearPod does have its own goggles that you can purchase and put phones inside and all that kind of stuff. However, we don't have access to that for classes. That would be extremely expensive. So you are just looking at it, the students would just be looking at it on their actual screens. And then they can use, if it's a touch screen, they can drag around with their finger, or they can use a mouse or a touch pad, and they can look around on a landscape. So like for example, I've done ones in different places around the world. So it'll give me like a tundra and the students can drag around and look at that. I've looked at Washington, D.C. Students can drag around and see the Capitol building and stuff like that. So they have, there's not a ton of them in there, but there's enough that I can see where you might use one from time to time. There's a graphing calculator, not one that I think at the elementary level. I've certainly never used it. If you're doing math, you could check it out, but I think that's a little above what our students would need. There's BBC videos. It's kind of like, searching YouTube, but it's a much, much smaller library. So I have not, to be honest, found a ton of good videos on there, but you're certainly welcome to check depending on the topic. And then there's something called Microsoft Sways, which are basically their own multimedia slideshows on different topics where students scroll down the page and they can see a variety of things on a topic. Once again, it's not a huge library, but there are, some sways from time to time that I've used. You can also make things into a slideshow where all the slides are on one page versus going from slide to slide, and students would scroll down to read the information. I don't recommend that for elementary because I feel like the more scrolling students have to do, they're not really paying a whole lot of attention anymore. So I usually pull things in as individual slides instead of scrolling slides. NearPod does have its own built-in audio recorder, which is really nice because you can record yourself reading directions. You can record yourself reading, part of a story, anything that you want students to hear your voice. You can pre-record that and include that on a slide. So if you're making a slide that has directions on the top, you can record yourself in audio. Now that does have to be done within NearPod itself because Google Slides does not have its own video recorder. So if you're working in the Google Slides version, you would have to record audio on another website and then bring that into Slides, which is a multi-step process. So if you're going to be recording a lot of audio for your kids, then I recommend doing your lesson within NearPod itself. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. All right. You guys are being really nice here, I think. Not asking questions unless I'm missing them, which in that case, I'm really sorry if I am. All right, so the next thing we're looking at is NearPod activities. So these are things that you can have students do, and you will be doing some of these activities throughout the lesson. So one of them that we already did was the poll. So you got experience of what the poll looks like. And then we have a time to climb, which is similar to a Kahoot game, but it's done within NearPod itself. And the nice thing about the Kahoot-ish game called Time to Climb, and we'll play a little version of this later, is that you can make your answers images instead of text if you're working with really young students. So I think that's a pretty nice way to be able to do that for our younger kids. There are open-ended questions. They just added an audio record feature for students so that if you give them an open-ended question and you toggle on that students can record audio, that's going to then allow them to either type an answer or record their answer with their own voice. So that's nice to be able to have that option. That's pretty new. There's matching pairs. We'll do an activity with matching pairs in just a little bit here. And so that one you are matching either two sets of words, so like a word and a definition. You can be matching pictures. You can be matching a math term to an image of that math term. So there's a lot of great ways that you can do matching practice. And then as a teacher, you can see how many tries it took them to get the matches right. There are quizzes, so you can set up a quiz. This is really nice at like the end of a lesson. And then it will auto grade those multiple choice answers. There is a Flipgrid integration. I would say though, because there's also a Flipgrid integration into Canvas, unless your Flipgrid grade is connected to your NearPod grade, then you would probably just want to use the Flipgrid within Canvas itself versus Flipgrid within NearPod within Canvas. That's starting to get to like multiple layers of integration there. There's draw it slides. These are, I use quite a bit from every grade level. And a draw it slide, you can either just use a blank whiteboard. So if you don't designate a background image, it'll just be like a whiteboard image, or you can put any image that you want on it. So if you design something in slides where you want kids circling the correct math strategy, or you want them circling the picture that matches the new vocabulary word, it will bring up some drawing tools for them where they can then circle, highlight, add a text box, and you will do one of those activities very soon. There are Padlets-like lessons called collaborate boards, where in real time you see student answers all coming up together. And you can also moderate this. So if you're doing a live lesson, you can choose to turn on the review before the student answer actually gets posted so that everybody can see it. All the rest of these, like open-ended questions and things, as the teacher, you're the only one that sees student responses unless you choose to share that with the class. And then there's also fill in the blank, where you create lessons with missing selections of words that students can drag and drop where they think those words belong. There is memory test, but this is just matching similar items. So like 2 pictures of bears to, pictures of the same word. I did have someone tell me that as a tech teacher, they use this one as like a good time filler when students were logging on to NearPod. So if they were getting on early and waiting on other kids, they would have just like a fun memory test one available for kids to do while they were waiting. Other than that, I don't know content wise if it would be quite as useful, although you can probably find some use for it. All right. Let's see here. All right. Oh, okay. Carrie, I need to change your role. Okay. Sorry, Carrie. Let's see if I can do that for you. My my moderator is trying to join us here. Here, I'm going to make you panelist. Okay, there you are. She's in, folks. I have someone that can help on this one now. Awesome, Carrie. All right, glad to have you. Okay. Next, let's do a collaborate board. So this is going to be your Padlet-like board. On the teacher screen, it gives me the opportunity of whether or not I want to approve student comments before they are posted. Now, for the sake of you guys getting to see what that looks like, I'm going to do that, although I hope you know I trust you as far as what you're going to put on the board. I can also, if I have multiple collaborate boards throughout the lesson, I can also make my choice apply for all of them so that I don't have to keep answering this question on each board. So I'm going to say yes, just so you can see what it looks like on the teacher end. So now at this point, you're going to be answering the question, which content or activities are you most interested in? So which ones really piqued your interest when I was showing you those 2 pages? Your answer gets typed in the box in the bottom. It does let you add an image. You can do a Google safe search for an image. For students, I usually designate whether or not I'm going to allow images, because sometimes they take a long time finding a picture instead of the 30 seconds it might take for them to type out an answer, and then they'll click on post when they are done. So as student responses come in, they'll come up to my pending post here. And sometimes, I will just warn you, sometimes NearPod gets a little bit stuck on the screen for students, and if it's not working for them properly, this refresh button, I teach them how to use the refresh button on their page, because 99.9% of the time, if they're not able to type in the box down here and they hit the refresh button, then it works. Ooh, I'm getting a response. Any new updates to NearPod? All right, Techie Fletchy, we will talk about that. There are a couple of them. All right. I am going to see if there's anything else popping up. All right, and if you don't feel like responding, that's okay. Nobody's going to force you to do that, obviously. But just so you know, your responses would come up here. Now, student names would be hidden on the student side. So if I switch to student view, they would only see the answers. I can choose to hide student names. So that's what it would be, look more like that. Okay. Let's see. Polls, quiz, matching pairs, Padlet-like feature. I know I like it too. It's great for in-class live participation. Now, this feature does work on student-paced lessons too. The only kind of bummer is if like you're the first student to answer, you're only going to see your answer. And if you're the last student to answer, you're going to get to see everybody's. So depending on how much in the same time frame students are doing the work will depend on how much they actually get to see on that board. Whereas when you're doing it live, then you're getting a little bit more of everybody getting to see each other's responses at the same time. All right, activities for homework. Yep, this can definitely be assigned for that as well if they have access to devices, which are 4th and 5th graders, at least we know during the day. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on here, and I will let you know too, for a live lesson, if you hit the arrow button, it is going to move the screen forward for students too. So if they missed that question, then they just miss it. They're not going to be able to go back and redo it unless it's a student-paced lesson. All right, so the next thing is matching pairs. So on your screen, you're going to see some types of NearPod activities and a description of those activities. So you can go ahead and try to match those together. I'm going to do that on my end, and I'm going to purposely make a mistake here so that you can see what that would look like on the teacher side. I'm going to do mine. All right, so you can see my answers popping up. So I got my matches done, but it took me 4 tries. So that shows me that even though I got them all done, I got at least one of them wrong, because if I got them all right, I would have gotten it done in 3 tries. So, and you can tell, you can see student in progress. So you can see Carrie here has not finished hers yet, which is why it's not in bold. Oh, she's done now. Congratulations, you got all of them right in 3 tries. All right, so that's how the activity looks on the teacher end. First, if you switch to student view, you're just going to see the same thing that you saw as a student on your screen. All right, and Carrie, if you do see any questions come through, feel free to pop off of our mute and let me know. If you want to add anything too, if you think I'm missing anything, feel free to do so. All right, then another thing, as a teacher, I wanted to let you know when you start up for the year, and you can go and you can change these at any time if you change your mind on any of these settings. And when you're in your main NearPod screen, and I'll switch to NearPod page here for a second, and I click on my profile and then go to lesson settings, I have several different things I can turn on or off. And depending on if you're face-to-face or virtual, or what kinds of age groups that you're working with, the particular group of students, you may change your mind on whether or not you want these on or off. So Immersive Reader is like a screen reader. It's similar to the read and write puzzle piece that we have. And it works on NearPod slides. It works on some activities. It does not work on everything. There is a NearPod Immersive Reader slide in my slideshow later on, where you can get some more information on that if you would like. But I leave it turned on because I figure if it can read to students, unless it's maybe a reading lesson where I want to test their comprehension, then I leave that on. There's a student notes feature. So when you're working on a NearPod lesson, you can bring up a notes box that allows you to type in notes off to the side. I have found that that is only a distraction for elementary kids unless you're really teaching them how to use it properly. And it's not really something I've personally needed for my lessons. I feel like what's on the screen is enough for elementary kids to handle. So I like to have that off, because usually students end up popping it open on their screen without even realizing it. You can, if it's a student-paced lesson, you can decide whether or not you want them to see their results to quizzes and multiple choice questions right away. In a live lesson, you'll be going over that with students, but in a student pace, you can decide whether or not they can see that. You can also decide if they're working live, whether or not you want to let them resubmit. So once you clicked on submit, you might have noticed that you were allowed to edit your response and turn it in again, but you can go ahead and turn that off if you don't want that available. I usually turn it on though, because sometimes students will make a mistake on spelling or they'll misunderstand the question, and I want to give them a chance to get that right. You can also decide if you're doing a student-paced lesson, that collaborative board that we just did, whether or not you want that available for student-paced lessons or not. Like I said, the only bad thing is if you're the first kid on that collaborative board, you're not going to see very much. If you're the last kid, you will. The other thing is you can't moderate those posts as easily, because since they're doing it on their own, if they put something up on the board that they shouldn't, it's harder for you as a teacher to control that because you're not live with them. So that's going to be a personal decision. And then you can also require that students turn in an answer. I would say if they're doing this on their own, this is a really good one to have turned on, because that way they can't just click through the slides and not answer the questions or do the work that has to be submitted. So requiring student submissions, especially when you're not there with them, if it's a student-paced lesson, I think is a very good idea, but that's me personally. All right. Next up, there is information on Immersive Reader, and I realize this does not play for you. We're going to talk about that when we talk about the add-on for Google Slides, but I do want to show you that on JB's little back to school site here, there are slide decks for every session that is being done for webinars. And this instructional delivery with checks for understanding, this is the NearPod one. And when you open that, you're going to see that there's two NearPod slideshows. This is the one I'm running, and this is the one I made for trainers that has the NearPod activities built into it. But this one that says slides only, this is one that you can just use to refer back to. It's the same thing that we're learning about today, but it doesn't have those activities built in as a student. It simply shows you the information. And that one has the slide where you can actually click on play and you can use that. So that's why there's two separate ones in here. This building trainers one is the one that's used during training, where students or teachers can experience it as a student, whereas this is just the slideshow by itself. But they both have the same basic information. So this will show you, if you want to see how Immersive Reader works, where the page is read to you. And this also, Immersive Reader is also within Canvas itself. So that could teach you just about Immersive Reader in general. All right, and then if you are starting to build a NearPod library, I had a question at my training Monday, and I realized I needed to include a slide on this. You can, by your profile little icon, if you click on new at the top, you can create folders, and you can drag and drop lessons into folders so that you can organize. So if you see if I go back to NearPod here, my library has a lot of folders. I still have things that need to go into folders that I need to organize better, but I also have a lot of folders here that I can use. And that does help keep me organized. And then next to any lesson, if you hover over it, you'll get 3 dots. And that will let you either add to one of your folders or to the district library. It'll let you see reports of student work, although you don't really need this anymore if you're assigning throughout Canvas, which is amazing. And then it will let you delete a lesson if you want to get rid of it. So that's just some tips for as you're starting to add NearPod lessons to your library of how to keep them organized for yourself. All right, so let's talk about actually creating some NearPod lessons. If you want to open a third tab and go to nearpod.com and log in as a teacher and be creating while I'm talking, you're welcome to, but it might be easier to do that after I'm done and then just refer back to the slideshow. That's up to you. When you go to your library screen, you'll have a couple of options. You'll have either I want to create a lesson in NearPod, or if it's a lesson you've added to your library, you'll have an edit button. So anything you find out in NearPod's lesson library can be edited. because you may want to add or delete or move slides around in a different order, make them fit your content, redo some questions on them, that type of thing. So once you've added something to your library, it becomes your own personal version of it. It's like making a copy of it, and then you can do what you want with it. We're going to look first at making a lesson in NearPod itself, not making a lesson using Google Slides. We'll talk about that next. So once you click on lesson in NearPod, it's going to open up. And let me show you here. So I'm going to make a lesson in NearPod. It's going to open up on the NearPod screen. If it's a brand new from scratch lesson, obviously you won't have anything in it yet, but you can click to add a slide. And when you do that, it asks you if you want to add content or do you want to add an activity. So then you can decide, okay, I just want to add a slide. I want to add a video. So it's going to bring up, this is, video library, YouTube videos, that sort of thing. So you can add web content if it's a link. You can add a slide itself. So this is their slide designer. Like I said, it's not quite as fancy as Google Slides, but it can get the job done with basic information. Or you can go to activity and you can put in a question, you can put in a matching pair, whatever it is, you are designing it all and doing it all within NearPod. So you do not have to use Google Slides at all if you do not want to. If you are finding a lesson from NearPod's lesson library, it will have been created in NearPod itself. It won't have been created in Google Slides. The slides are drag and drop. So if something is in the wrong order or you change your mind, you can just click on a slide and drag it to the spot where you want it to be. You can also take any slide that you brought in, and there's this convert to draw it button that will immediately change a text informational slide to a drawing slide. So if you create a slide of information, you're like, you know what, I actually want students to like circle something or highlight something on this, then you just click on the convert to draw it, and all of a sudden students will have the drawing tools when you assign them that particular slideshow. You can also, which I think is really nice, is click preview at any point. You can preview the whole slideshow or you can preview just a particular slide if you clicked on it, and it will show you that slide from student view. So any slide that you create, you're like, I don't know how this is going to look for kids, just click on that preview button. And then, of course, when you're finished, you're hitting save and exit. However, if you forget to save, it still does save your progress like Google does, and it'll just prompt you to save before you can actually assign the lesson to students. So if your computer just shuts down on you and you had a NearPod page open or something like that, you're not going to lose what you already created. Carrie, let me know if there's anything else you think I need to add on that part of it, because I am going to show the Google Slides version here in a second. All right, so the other thing you can do if you're working within NearPod itself, but you do have some slides that you want to bring in, you still can bring in Google Slides from a slideshow into NearPod itself. The big thing that you really, really, really need to hear me say is that when you bring a slideshow into NearPod, each of those slides is coming in as an image. So if you had videos and things on those slides, those videos links are not going to work. You would need to add a NearPod slide and add the video with NearPod's integration itself. So just keep in mind that when you bring that over, it's going to bring it over as images. Now those images can be turned to drawing images. You can click on that convert to draw it if you want, but they will be coming in as images. So let me show you, let me come back here to my lesson in NearPod that I started from scratch. So you can see here at the bottom, it says upload files, and one of my options is my Google Drive button. So if I click on that, and I think it might ask for, I'm not sure if it's going to ask for authorization the first time or not, because you're already logging in with Google, so you're probably okay. And then if I were to find a teacher or a slideshow that I wanted to bring in, I could click on it, hit select, and then it's going to ask me, do I want to bring each of these slides in as individual slides, or do I want to create a PDF viewer? That's like where students are going to scroll down. So if you have 15 slides, they're all on one page, the students keep scrolling. I do not recommend that. I always bring them in as individual slides, and if there's something I don't need or something I want to make a draw it slide, then I always have that available for myself. Now, it can take a minute to do the loading depending on how big your file is, and I honestly just picked a random one, so I have no idea how big this file is. And then it's going to upload all of my slides, and it's still taking a hot second here. That's okay. Oh, here they go. They're coming in. All right, so you can see there that I have slides come in. It looks like that one. Oh, there they are. Okay, I knew that there was some more information there. Okay, so then this is my slideshow, but each of these things are images. So if there were links or videos that were originally on these slides, they are not going to work here. You would need to add a slide and add your video in separately through NearPod. So just want to make sure you know that. Because that can be a big deal for teachers that have a lot of video content embedded into a slideshow. All right, so that's creating lessons within NearPod itself. You also have an add-on within Google Slides where you can create lessons that you might have a slideshow already made and you don't want to have to import it into NearPod itself. You can still add the same kinds of activities, video, you can add the matching, you can add the VR stuff, you can add draw it slides, all of that stuff can still be created within Google Slides itself. So if you have and I'm going to start a new slideshow here so I can show you that. So everybody, and I believe this is pushed from the districts. I think all of the trainers that I trained on Monday said they already had this in their add-ons. If not, it's free in the add-on store and it's been approved for our district. So if I'm in a Google Slides presentation, this can be one that I already have created and I already have content on. If I click on add-ons and NearPod, it's going to open up those same NearPod tools, but it's going to open it up on a sidebar here. I'll make sure everybody can see that. So I can take any slide that's already in my slideshow and convert to draw it, just like I can do a NearPod. I can add any of these kind of activities. So if I want to turn something into a draw it slide, I can upload it, or it can be what's already on my slide. This happens to be a blank slide. I can add instructions to it, different things like that, and then save it. And then this will be a draw it slide within my slideshow now. So you'll see there it says draw it. Now it doesn't look like anything right now because you have to actually run it in NearPod. You have to actually go to NearPod to assign the lesson to kids or in Canvas. We'll look at that in just a minute. So I just wanted you to see that you can do these same tools in a Google slideshow as you do on NearPod itself. So you might be thinking, well then Hannah, why would I ever use NearPod to create lessons? Why wouldn't I just do it in Google Slides? Because I know Google Slides. That's a great question. And I have a couple things to tell you about that. So this next slide is a video. You don't have to watch this right now, but I did want to show you that you can, when you integrate a video into a live presentation, you get the option as a teacher of whether or not you want every device to be able to click play, or if you just want the teacher device to be able to click play. So if you say this device only, you'll be playing it up front on your projected screen, versus if you say all devices, each kid would need their headphones in and they would click play and watch it on their own. So that's going to depend on how your lesson is running, if your students have earbuds available, that type of thing. So I just wanted to let you know you get that option as a teacher in a live lesson. If it's student-paced, of course, they're going to have that play button if they're doing the lesson by themselves. You can also choose whether or not you want that to apply for the whole lesson, or if you want to decide for each video. Now, I'm going to say all devices just so you can see. This just shows you more information about the add-on in Google Slides. I wanted you to see when you embed a YouTube video, that's how it's going to look for the student end. You are certainly welcome to, watch this on your own and go back because it's the same basic information I'm giving you. I just wanted you to have an example of a video embedded into a NearPod lesson. All right, here's our pro and cons. So the great thing about using the NearPod add-on and working within Google Slides, so this version here that I've now hidden right here, where you have the NearPod tools on the side of your slideshow. So the nice thing about it is you can use existing slideshows and you don't have to import a NearPod. So you just open up what you already have, click on add-ons and get going. You also can share that slideshow with other teachers and you guys can work collaboratively on it. If you work with a NearPod, you can share your lesson with another teacher, but then they get their own copy and you guys are each editing separately. And then the lesson is saved both in your Drive, in Google Drive, and it's also saved within NearPod itself. The cons of using the Google Slide add-on is it does not have that built-in audio recorder. If I were to go to here and I say I want to import audio, it's going to say, great, where's your audio file? And it's not going to have a way for me to record audio within Slides because Slides does not have that built in. NearPod does. So if I wanted to add audio to a slide in Google Slides, I would have to record that audio on a separate website and download that file. Versus in NearPod itself, if I click on Add Slide and I want to click on audio, it's going to have, oh, it does have this built in. It's going to have an audio record feature. I don't think I have it turned on here, sorry. It's going to have an audio record feature where you can record your own audio to a lesson. Here we go, audio. And then it's going to bring up my audio recorder. I have to allow it. And then you see here, I can then click record and I can record my audio and it'll be whatever I want it to say and I can save it to that slide. So that's one major difference between the two is whether or not you're able to record your own audio. And I'm also going to depend on the age of your students, if you're doing it live versus if they're doing it on their own, all of those kinds of things come into play. And then you also have to add videos using NearPod's video tools. In the slideshow, you saw an example of this, so I'm going to jump back so I can also show you how, as a teacher, you can move between slides. I can also jump back by using this little feature at the bottom, my arrow. It shows me all the slideshows in my lesson so that I can move, jump. Like if I realize, oh, I'm running out of time, I'm going to skip these 3 slides. I don't have to just press the arrows and let students see them. I can say, oh, I want to actually go to this slide. So I click on it, press share. So this was one that I used. So I made this in Google Slides. I made this presentation in Google Slides and used the NearPod add-on to make this. However, this was added in my Google Slides by going to insert video. That's why it doesn't work when I'm running it as a NearPod lesson because I didn't insert it using NearPod's tool on the side. So if I had gone to the add-ons here, and here I had said I want to insert a video and use the YouTube link, then it would actually work for you. So that's the difference. That's one of those cons of using Google Slides is any video content has to be added through NearPod integration itself. All right, now of course I have to figure out where I was. Here we go, pros and cons, that's it. Okay. And feel free if you have any questions about those items, please let me know because I know that's a lot of information. I just wanted to make sure I was really clear though that you can build lessons in either way, but there are some pros and cons to both. All right, so now it's time for you to do some drawing. So this is a student drawing slide that you're going to see. On the teacher side, I'm going to see what the students are drawing. On the student side, you're going to see that you have a pen tool in the bottom of your screen. You have a highlighter tool, you have a text box tool, an image tool, and an eraser tool. You also have lovely undo buttons and things like that too. So I'm going to switch to student view for just a minute here, so that people watching the webinar can see the student view of a drawing slide. So you have your tools down here. You can pick colors, you can pick highlighters. So it defaults to black text unless you choose a different color. And then you could just circle, and yes, you're using a mouse or a touchpad unless you have a touch screen. So the drawing, I tell students, this is not art class. I'm not expecting a masterpiece from you. Just do your best as far as what you want to do with drawing. So that's what the students are going to see. I'm going to switch back to teacher view so you can see what teachers see. So you can see the difference here. If it's in progress, it's yellow. So it's showing you what students are working on. This is nice, and this is actually a newer feature. It didn't used to have an in progress option. But the nice thing about this is that if students, you see that they're on like totally off track, like, ooh, that's not the kind of drawing I was looking for at all. You have a chance before they actually submit in a live lesson to look at it and go, oh, okay, they need some extra help. I'm going to go talk to them first before they hit submit. Now, the other thing that you can do as a teacher on the teacher view, any one that students have submitted, and I'm sure my techie Fletchy won't mind because I usually ask students, oh, she's still in progress. Never mind. Oh, there you submitted. Thank you, techie Fletchy. All right. Oh, she even added her Bitmoji. Of course you did. All right. So any student submission, you can click on the share button, and then it's going to share to the whole class. So if you're in a live lesson, you see someone had a really great drawing or a really great answer, and they really did something wonderful you want the whole class to see, you can go ahead and share that with the class. I will say, though, that I've learned from using NearPod over the last few years that it's always a good idea to ask students first if they're okay with their answer being shared with the class. Some of them, even if it's an amazing answer, they just don't like that attention. So I have learned it's best just to say, hey, I love your response. Is it okay if I share it? And then if they say no, there's always more kids in the class. There's always somebody that's very happy to share. And in fact, sometimes, especially with my younger kids, they get sad if I don't share everybody. So we have to have that discussion as well. All right, so that is your drawing slide. There is a new feature. In fact, I did not know about this feature until Sunday when I was just going to check my links in my slideshow, and I'm like, oh, there's a whole nother thing here. Fantastic. So then I quickly tried to learn about it and add it to my slideshow. And that is that you can take a video, whether it's a YouTube video, a video you upload to NearPod itself, or a NearPod library video. They have a library of their own videos. And then you can embed questions, multiple choice or open-ended questions within the video itself. So basically, as you're watching the video, it'll stop at whatever points that you want the questions to come up, and it will ask those questions. Now, you have within videos, let me switch here. So this is a web page about that video integration. So on your screen as a student, you'll be able to scroll on that page, and you'll be able to see that there's a video on there, there's text on there. So you'll be able to look at that web page as if I sent you to that page itself, but you're still within NearPod, which is really great. You don't actually have to go to another web page to be able to view everything. It's all done within the NearPod page. So this shows you that you can take a video and you can add the questions to it. Now, I did a sample one, so I'm going to show you my library here. Go back. And I found one, I just quickly searched here, and I found one on hyperbole that was in the NearPod library, and I added a couple questions to it. And when you go to present that to class, you're going to see there's actually 3 options. And that's because you can either do this live the way we're doing in NearPod right now. You can do it student paced, so they're watching a video and answering questions on their own. Or you can do what's called front of class, because if you're K-3, especially, your students are not one-to-one, and they may not have devices with them all the time. But you may love the idea of, hey, I'm going to already play this video in class, and I know I'm going to use it, but I would love to embed questions in the video so that while I'm playing that video in front of the class, it stops automatically where I want it to stop, and the question pops up on the screen, and we can discuss it as a class together. So even if none of your students have devices, you could still make a video with embedded questions that you just play on your teacher screen, which I think is a really nice new feature that they have. This is really meant to compete with another tool, another website called EdPuzzle. which our secondary teachers have, but we don't because it costs extra money. And EdPuzzle has a few more features, but this is, I really think, NearPod's play at trying to keep people on NearPod and not spending money on EdPuzzle. That's my own personal take. So on this screen, and you'll be able to see it, it should load. Yeah, it's just taking a little bit of time here. This is the example video that I made. It's just in a preview because you cannot do that questioning within a video within another NearPod right now. That video is its own standalone lesson, but I wanted you to see a preview of what it would look like. So you're not actually going to be able to answer questions if you press play. You're just going to see an example of what it would look like if you made a video like this. But you would have to assign this as its own separate lesson, separate from the rest of a NearPod slideshow. All right. The next thing we have is actually creating those assignments in Canvas. So I know we're at 4 o'clock. JB said if you go longer than an hour, that's okay. I knew it would probably take me closer to hour 15, hour 30 to make sure you got to see everything. So I didn't want to skip out on NearPod itself. But the integration in Canvas is really nice because students aren't going to have to leave Canvas in order to do a NearPod lesson. So I'm going to be switching to Canvas here in a second so I can show you how that's done. I will let you know that on the slideshow, there are very specific directions that are numbered and circled and everything else that show you exactly the same thing that I'm going to be showing you right now. So I'm in my assignments page and I have a NearPod. I have an assignment I'm going to do. So I just clicked on plus assignment and I just gave it the name NearPod. You can name it whatever you want. I just called it NearPod. So I'm inside of a Canvas course. So I picked one of my courses here. Then I went to the assignments page, or you can build it within a module, which is like a unit. So if I already have like a lesson and I just want to add a NearPod lesson to the rest of a unit that students are doing, I can do it that way too. It really does not matter however you want to organize it. And that's more of a Canvas thing than it is a NearPod thing. So when I have a lesson, I'm going to go ahead and edit it. Like I said, you can call this whatever you want. I'm just calling it NearPod lesson as an example. So this may be over a particular topic. Like for us tech teachers, we use this for a lot of our digital citizenship. So for me, this could be, cyberbullying or whatever the topic is. I can add some directions and I can add a review video up here. I mean, I can add stuff up here if I want in the rich content editor, but I don't have to because the NearPod lesson really is my content in this case. But if I felt like there was some directions I wanted to add up here, I could if I thought I needed to. Okay. The really big important part here is when you add it as an assignment, it's the submission type that matters. Okay. So right now it says so no submission. We are going to use an external tool because NearPod is an external tool that's been added into Canvas for us. I'm going to click on external tool. I'm going to click on find, and then NearPod should already be there because Nick pushed this out at the district level for you. And it's going to actually bring up your NearPod library. Now, and one note on that is you have to make sure if you find a lesson from the big NearPod library or searching, you have to add it to your library first. So if there's a lesson somebody shared with you, just make sure it's in your library first before you actually try to assign it. Otherwise, it won't be here. So then if I wanted students to do this lesson, if I hover over it, I can either say, I'm going to do this live in class. So I'm going to get this lesson ready, but then we're all going to open it at the same time and I'm going to run it the way I'm doing it with you during this training. Or if I want students doing this on their own, so they're working on a word study lesson, for example, and they're doing this by themselves, I can set this as student pace. The difference being if it's student pace, students will have the arrows to move from one page of the lesson to the next. Okay. So let's say I assign that as student paced. And then I just you can see NearPod's been chosen. I hit select. This is the code that is the actual NearPod lesson itself. I don't need to mess with it. I just leave it as is. And then I can either save or save and publish. If it's ready, if you want it to be available for students right away, you can click save and publish. If it's something that you're trying to set up in advance and you don't want students to be able to see it for several more days, then you could just save it and it would be saving it as a draft. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and do save and publish. And then if I had any directions, they'd be up here. Here's what it looks like for students. This is awesome. So they go to that assignment page and it takes them right here to NearPod. They don't have to put in a code. They don't even have to type in their name because Canvas already knows their name from how they signed into the computer. All they have to do is click on join lesson and they're in. Okay, and this is the lesson that's there. Since this is student paced, you're going to see the arrows here so they can go back and forth. And these are just slide informational slides, but then if it were an activity slide, so this is a draw it slide, so they could then go ahead and do their drawings, whatever it is that they were doing on this page. Notice this little button here. This is the immersive reader. So it is going to then take those directions, and if students hit play, and I don't think you can hear that on your end because I don't have the audio set up through WebEx, but then it's going to read it to students. Okay, so that's that immersive reader there, and then they can go back. And it's the same way that immersive reader works within Canvas lessons themselves. So if you get them used to immersive reader in NearPod, they can use it in Canvas or vice versa. Notice here, then I have my submit button. So I submit and it takes me to the next slide. So that would be student pace where students are moving through the lesson on their own. All right, which I think is really nice for student pace lessons where you want it to be more than them just looking at a slideshow. You want them actually interacting with the content a little bit further. I think that's really helpful to have. Okay, let me go back here. So that was those directions. All right, now you get to take a quiz. It's very short, 3 questions to see what you have learned about NearPod so far. So you can go ahead, remember as a student, you're only going to see the questions on the teacher side. So I'm in teacher view. That's where you're actually seeing student responses and their score. I'll let you do that for a second. I'm going to purposely get one wrong here so that you can see that. All right, so it's updating how I did. It's also making a class chart of the percentage correct and incorrect at the same time. Okay, that's a great question, Ashley. She wants to know what the difference is of adding NearPod to Canvas via an assignment instead of clicking on the NearPod tab on the left side. So I played around with that because I was like, what does that do when so if I'm in Canvas and I just click here on the left side where it says NearPod, this is you working within NearPod. So like you getting a lesson, searching your library, you searching NearPod's library for lessons and adding them to your library or editing. This is not where you want to assign, because if you sign through here, then students have to go to NearPod to do the assignment. Okay, because this is just basically, I'm at nearpod.com, but I just happen to be within Canvas. It's not an integration. It's basically just putting the website on the Canvas page for you. If you want to actually be able to grade it in SpeedGrader versus having to go to NearPod and run a report, you're going to want to assign it as an assignment here in Canvas. So I'm glad you asked that question because that is a big deal as far as the difference. So this allows you, this NearPod on the side, and you can actually hide this from students. They don't have to be able to see this on their navigation to be able to do something you put into an assignment. That's just for you. So as a teacher, you can use this to get around NearPod, to find lessons, to edit them, add them to your library, that type of thing. But if you click here on live or student pace, it's just going to assign it on NearPod itself. It's not going to be integrated into a Canvas assignment. So hopefully that helps to answer that question. Okay. All righty. So you can see here, so if students get that right, it's green, wrong is red. And then I can share overall class results. If it's gray, that means those students haven't answered yet. So it kind of lets you know how close you are to students all responding. So I could click share and I could send those results to you as a class, so you can see our class results. But as the teacher, I'm the only one that's going to see the actual student answers. And then this also gets recorded. So if you're doing this lesson as an assignment within NearPod, these scores are recorded that you can view in SpeedGrader as well, along with everything else. Now, NearPod can be assigned as an activity into Canvas where you wouldn't actually be using SpeedGrader. I don't know that I would recommend doing this because I think it's really nice to have it in the SpeedGrader itself to view individual student responses and not have to go to NearPod and run a report to see those responses. Would you agree with that, Carrie?
Yes.
Okay.
I was actually going to ask, I don't know if you mentioned this earlier with the hiding the student names. If they're displaying it on their projected screen and they don't have the names hidden, then everybody in the class is going to know what it was.
Yes. So that's why I recommend this would be done on a different screen, but only the teacher can see. Yes, definitely. I would not want these names out, even if I could hide them and then I could make this my teacher view. But as a teacher, I want to be able to see those names as students are working. So that's why I would put this on, my dual screen that only I can see. And then I would be in student view. So let me click on student here. And I would just make sure that what I have projected on my big screen for everybody to see are just the questions themselves. So thanks for reiterating that, Carrie. I appreciate it. All right.
No problem.
All right. And then let me go here. All right. So then if you create a NearPod lesson that's within NearPod itself instead of in Google Slides, if you create a lesson using the Google Slides add-on, then you're just using the share button that's on Slides, and then teachers are collaborating on it together. If somebody else edits it and then you go back to it in NearPod, it's going to say, hey, it looks like, some edits were done to that slideshow. Just want to let you know. So if I'm ready and if I've made this in Slides itself, I click save and go to NearPod, and then it's going to save within NearPod. And then if I go back to edit, it's going to take me back to Slides. So that's how so if I click on edit here, since this was made in Slides, it's going to reopen in Slides. Okay. But if I made it in NearPod, it's going to reopen in the NearPod page. So if I am sharing and I want someone else to have their own editable copy, it's kind of like the forced copy in Google Slides. Then I would click on those three dots above the lesson. So I'm going to hover over the lesson here, any lesson, three dots, share with teachers. And then I get two options. Do I want to share a preview with them, which is kind of like how I shared that videos and questions embedded within a video where they can't actually edit anything. They can just preview it. Or do I want to give them an editable copy? I would say 99.9% of the time, you want them to be able to have their own version that they can edit. So you want to give them an editable copy. And then that's their own copy. Once they click on the link that you've sent them, it's going to pop up and it's going to say, here's the NearPod lesson. Do you want to add it to your library? And when I click on add it to my library and I start editing it, it's my own version. It is not going to affect the version that you as the original creator made. You are giving them their own version. Now, the only thing about that to keep in mind then is if you make edits to your original after they've already, made their own copy of it, they're not going to get those edits that you have made. You would need to, reshare it with them if you do it that way. That is a benefit of doing it and sharing it within Google Slides itself, because then they get those updates. All right, just depends on if you trust them to, be editing the slide with you. And then we also have the opportunity to share lessons to the district library. Like I said, there's not a whole lot that's in there for elementary yet, because we've just got access to these NearPod codes for all of elementary. But if you wanted to start that, we can, Nick or I can create folders within there if you want us to have folders for certain, subjects or things. There's also a school library, so that can also be managed. You just want to share lessons and drop them in there with other teachers in your building. These, though, once you put them in the library, and someone takes them, they're just getting their own copy. So if you put something in a school or district library, nobody's going to be able to edit your original. You're basically putting a copy of what you created into the school or district library. All right, and then viewing and grading student work. So this is a page, and this is also on the slideshow of resources that you can go back to. If you were a teacher that didn't attend the webinar and you were just looking at slides, I wanted to give you an opportunity to see the difference between student and teacher view. Obviously, you've gotten to experience that joining the lesson itself, but in case you didn't, I wanted you to see what that looks like. And then, oh boy, there we go. It is time to climb. So this is a game, that Kahoot-like game that's built within NearPod itself. I just made it really short and sweet just so you could experience it. As a teacher, you decide what theme you want. I'm going to go ahead and go to the underwater theme because it's new. Click continue. And then you, as a student participant, you are going to come on your screen, you're going to see a bunch of avatars. And then you are going to get to click. I'm going to be the penguin here on my student one, because I have this opened up on another screen as a student. Oh, I got a few fun characters there. There they are. All right, so then you'll see what students are in, because they'll say 3 connected. And make sure as the teacher you hit start when you're ready, not the arrows, because that's going to take you to the next part of your lesson. I have done that before on accident, and my students have to start all over picking avatars, and that was a bummer for them. They were not very happy with me. So, all right, now because of time here, if you're waiting and you're not in, I apologize, because oh, you know what? Actually, we tried this out on Monday. If you join late, it does still let you start even after I press start. We had somebody test that out because their computer died. So it's going to count down. It's going to give you a question on your screen. So this says one of NearPod's activities is draw it. So then on your screen, you're going to answer the question, and you're going to then see the results if it was right or wrong. And then once that timer is up, it goes on to the next question. Now, the only thing that I don't like about this is that it doesn't pause between questions. So once that timer runs out, it automatically goes to the next question. Unless, Carrie, you found a way to make it pause, I have not been able to find a way to do that. But it just keeps moving through the questions until they are done. So I just wanted to point that out, because like with Kahoot, you can kind of stop and discuss a little bit. With this one, it just kind of keeps moving until you've gone through the questions. Now, you could do each question as its own time to climb and not built within a bigger game if you wanted to actually stop after each question and discuss. But that's really the only workaround that I found. So you can see the highest climbers are the ones that got the answers right, and they got it the fastest. Just like Kahoot, the faster you get the right answer, the more points you get. All right. So that takes you there and ends it. And then you can see the result. Oh, look, Techie Fletchy won. Surprise. All right, awesome. Okay, so that is what I have for you. I did want to give you an option of doing a short answer and open-ended question, since we haven't done an example of those yet. So you could type in the Q&A if you want to, obviously. But if you're within NearPod itself, you can ask your question there. You'll see that I had, when I created it as a teacher, I made sure that the record audio option was toggled on the question when I built it. So you can either answer in text, or you can record a response, or you can do both. So you'll have and I'll let me show this for people watching. Thanks, Fletchy. I appreciate it. All right, so if I go to student view, as a student, for people just watching the recording here that aren't in NearPod itself, it'll say, I have my question here where I can type, or I can click this record audio button, and then I can record myself speaking. I also have this immersive reader where I can have it read the directions. I believe it reads the directions. Yeah, so it reads those directions. So it reads that to you as well. So that's what it looks like on the student end when you are going to ask a question. And that's the open-ended question is the type there. All right. So that is what I have so far, or what I have for NearPod. I certainly am happy to take a look at the Q&A and we can answer questions there. I'm going to go ahead and end this NearPod session. So you can see as the teacher, if I want to end the session, I click on the arrow and then I just click on end session, and then it'll say you want to end the session. It's going to end it for students. So when you choose as the live teacher to end the session, then everybody then is out of the lesson. And it'll say on the student side, your session has ended. Okay, so let's see what questions we have here. Carrie, can you questions here? Or any
we don't have any questions. Our friends
Okay.
seem to, they're pretty good. Like it looks like. I did want to ask or point out one thing.
Sure.
I know in the past, if you started a NearPod lesson on day one, but you didn't finish it, resume it the next day, it was almost like they logged the kids in a second time. So then your stats would look different. So on day one, you have.
Oh, yes, you're right. That's true.
But on day two, it's going to say that you suddenly have 40 kids logged in.
You know what? That's a great question. I'll have to try that on the Canvas end and run a live or a student pace. So I think student pace it may not matter because I know that they'd be logging in again, but that's a great question. I will need to play around with that within Canvas, because you're right. Within NearPod itself, it's like, we came back to it and it's like they had to start at the beginning and it didn't remember that they were halfway through. So they had to sign in again, and everything was doubled. That's a great point. I had forgotten about that. So we'll check and see if maybe they've made updates to that when they made all their other NearPod updates, or if that is an issue within Canvas. If it is, I'll make sure to add a slide about that in the slideshow. So thanks, Carrie. That's a great
Not a problem.
So yes, so if you are wanting to assign some lessons to your students, you can either come here to NearPod and design them. You can design them in slides using the NearPod add-on to slides, and then just make sure when you're done on the slideshow that you do the save and go to NearPod, which is at the bottom here. Save and go to NearPod, and that's going to save it within NearPod as well as Drive. And then when you're ready, if you're using Canvas, you're going to go to assignments or go to modules and add it to a unit you've already started. And you're going to assign it as an assignment so that you can see student results in SpeedGrader itself. And there is within the slideshow, there is a short clip of part of a webinar. And so it's a full webinar, but I shorten it so that the only part you see is like a 3 or 4 minute part that shows you what SpeedGrader looks like when you go in and look at it, reports of a student through a lesson that was assigned in Canvas. Since I didn't have students to actually test that out on, I figured I'd use that view from one of the Canvas and NearPod experts that showed that on her webinar. All right, anything else that you see, Carrie, or anything else that you want to add?
No, awesome. I can't think of anything else. So you covered it all.
Woo, all right.
Very nice.
It done. All right. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. And this is going to be recorded just like the Canvas ones were. So if you need to go back at any time to review, or if you want to watch anything again or have other people watch it. And remember, there's also a NearPod person within your building that's been through the same training with me that I did on Monday. All right. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye. That was fun.